Imagine walking down the street. You've never touched a cigarette in your life.
Right. You actively avoid them because, well, you know all the risks.
Exactly. But everyone around you is just puffing away, and by the time you go home, you're coughing, your eyes are watering, and your clothes smell entirely like smoke.
It's completely unavoidable.
It really is. Okay, let's unpack this. Because right now, there is a massive, highly volatile financial experiment happening across the globe. And you are breathing in that secondhand smoke, whether you ever opted in or not.
Yeah, that's a really great way to frame it.
Thanks. Today, we are deep diving into a really fascinating TEDx Mid-Atlantic talk by researcher Tonantzin Carmona. It's titled How Cryptocurrency Creates Risks for Everyone. And her mission is to basically pull back the curtain on the hidden plumbing of our financial system. We want to show you exactly how crypto impacts you, the listener, even if you have literally never bought a single fraction of a digital coin.
And that secondhand smoke comparison, it gets right to the core tension of Carmona's research. I mean, for over a decade now, cryptocurrency has been aggressively pitched to the public as the ultimate form of freedom.
Oh, absolutely. The undisputed future of money.
Right. It's marketed as pure innovation, a way to break free from these traditional floodish banking structures.
Yeah.
But she points out that at its absolute core, once you strip away all the complex mathematical jargon and the slick Silicon Valley marketing, crypto is essentially just digital tokens.
Right. They aren't backed by a physical commodity like gold or anything.
No, not at all. They aren't backed by a government entity or a military. They're entirely backed by public sentiment. Or, as Carmona bluntly puts it in her talk, they are backed by vibes.
Vibes. I mean, it is such a jarring word to hear when you place it next to something as serious as your retirement fund or, your ability to pay your mortgage.
It really is.
And that is exactly what we're going to explore today for you. We're going to look at how these digitally manufactured vibes are quietly creeping into your credit card reward programs, your local community infrastructure, and your state pension funds.
Yeah.
But to understand why Carmona is sounding the alarm so loudly right now, we actually have to go backward before we go forward. We have to look at the historical parallel she draws, taking us right back to the financial carnage of 2008.
Yeah, and Carmona grounds her entire analysis in a deeply personal narrative, which, it makes the economic theory hit home. She isn't just looking at spreadsheets. She actually lived through the consequences of systemic financial failure.
Wait, really?
Yeah, in 2008, her own family lost their home. She paints this incredibly vivid picture in her talk names. Neighborhoods suddenly lined with foreclosure notices, families' entire lives and personal belongings reduced to garbage bags just sitting on the curb. She knows firsthand what financial collapse feels like when it hits the ground level.
Wow. Because before the 2008 crash, Wall Street was taking these terrible, highly toxic home loans, mortgages they knew people couldn't possibly pay back, bundling them together and putting a shiny AAA safety rating on them. Exactly. They essentially took a garbage bag of debt and stamped it certified safe. Right. And the regulators overseeing everything, they just nodded along. Then, when the inevitable collapse finally happened, the people who actually engineered those toxic products, well, they didn't face the brunt of the consequences.
Not at all.
The suffering was shifted onto ordinary families who had zero hand in designing that system. They didn't build the bomb, but it went off in their living room anyway.
Right, and this brings us to a crucial concept in her research called predatory inclusion. This is where the echoes of 2008 become practically deafening. Today, crypto is heavily marketed to marginalized communities.
Okay, how so?
Well, it's sold as a revolutionary pathway to wealth generation, like a way to bypass a traditional banking system that has historically shut these exact communities out. It promises a ladder up, but what it actually delivers is exposure to immense, unregulated risks and devastating financial losses.
Wait, I need to jump in here. Wasn't cryptocurrency originally invented specifically to be the exact antidote to the 2008 banking crash?
Yeah, that was the original pitch.
Right, like the whole point of the original Bitcoin white paper was to create a decentralized system so we wouldn't have to rely on those exact Wall Street banks that bundled those toxic loans. How did it become the exact thing it was supposed to replace?
What's fascinating here is how the mechanics of financial exploitation simply adapt to new technologies.
Yeah.
Carmona's argument is that the illusion of safety is repeating itself. It's just wearing a different mask.
Oh, I see. So in 2008, the mask was the AAA rating on a bundled mortgage.
Exactly. And today, the mask is the promise of mathematical certainty and decentralization. But underneath, the exact same vulnerable populations are being targeted with a new kind of subprime product, The wrapping paper is different, sure, but the incredibly high-risk speculative nature of the asset is exactly the same.
So, if crypto is the modern equivalent of the 2008 subprime mortgage, the terrifying question is, where exactly is it hiding? Because in 2008, it was hiding in the housing market, which eventually touched everyone. Where is the silent creep happening today?
It starts at the very top. Carmona points out that it has been completely normalized in government and high finance. We literally have a massive federal initiative right now, nicknamed Doge, after a meme coin featuring a Shiba Inu dog.
Right, which illustrates how this is absolutely no longer a fringe internet hobby.
Exactly. And from there, it creeps directly into Wall Street. Banks are offering credit cards where the cashback rewards are paid out in crypto. But the most alarming example, honestly, is the integration into retirement savings.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, several state pension funds and even mainstream 401k plans are now holding crypto-linked assets, and they're selling this to the public under the guise of portfolio diversification.
Imagine you are a public school teacher. You are grading papers, paying your taxes, counting on your pension to be there when you're 65. You have zero desire to buy a digital token.
Right, zero.
But because of decisions made by an unseen fund manager, your future security is suddenly tied to one of the most erratic markets on the planet. It's forced exposure.
Completely forced.
Okay, I can see how a state pension gambling on crypto is terrifying for a teacher. But what if your retirement isn't tied into those specific pension funds? Is there a way this risk leaks into the physical, everyday world?
Absolutely. In fact, if you live in Texas, you're already paying for it on your monthly utility bill.
Wait, really?
Yeah. Carmona highlights that just 10 Bitcoin mining operations in Texas added nearly $2 billion to household energy bills in a single year.
$2 billion.
$2 billion. And to understand why a computer program uses that much electricity, you have to look at how Bitcoin actually works. It uses a system called proof of work. Millions of specialized computers around the world are basically racing to solve incredibly complex but totally useless math puzzles.
Just to win the right to process the next block of transactions, right?
Exactly, and get rewarded with new Bitcoin. It's a purposeful, endless arms race of computational power.
So they are drawing massive amounts of electricity from the grid to run these math equations 24/7. It makes me think of an analogy.
Oh, let's hear it.
Imagine you wake up one morning and the water pressure in your house has completely dropped to a trickle. And at the end of the month, your water bill arrives and it has absolutely skyrocketed.
Nightmare scenario.
Right. So you look out your window and you realize that one guy at the end of your block decided to build a commercial-grade water park in his backyard. He's running massive wave pools and water slides all day to make a profit. But because you all share the same neighborhood water main, your pressure is ruined.
And what makes your water park analogy so apt is that it's not just the water pressure dropping. The cost of building that new pipe infrastructure and the strain on the entire grid gets passed on to you through rate hikes.
Right, because everyone shares the grid.
Exactly. The grid operator has to fire up extra natural gas plants just to keep the lights on, and everyone's bill goes up to cover the fuel. So ordinary residents end up subsidizing the energy consumption of these private crypto mines.
That's wild.
And that's before factoring in the physical toll.
Yeah.
Locals report sleepless nights and severe health problems simply from the relentless, roaring noise of these industrial cooling fans running day and night.
Wow. So you are forced to foot the bill for their excessive usage. It's unavoidable. And the harm isn't just infrastructural. The sheer volume of outright fraud is staggering. In 2024 alone, Americans lost over $9 billion to crypto scams.
Yeah, the numbers are brutal.
And the most heartbreaking part of that statistic, seniors lost nearly $3 billion of that.
The physical storefronts for a lot of this exploitation are those Bitcoin ATMs you see popping up in gas stations and local convenience stores.
Oh, yeah, I see those everywhere now.
Right. Carmona points out that these ATMs are intentionally strategically clustered in Black, Latino, and immigrant neighborhoods. They are placed there because those communities often have higher populations of unbanked individuals or people who regularly send remittances, money sent back to family in other countries.
Oh, I see. Because traditional wire transfers charge fees, the crypto machines market themselves as a cheaper, faster alternative for, say, a grandmother trying to send money to El Salvador.
Exactly. But in reality, they charge hidden, predatory exchange rates, sometimes skimming huge percentages off the top of the transaction. It preys on a lack of banking access to extract wealth directly from the people who can least afford it.
Okay, so we have local energy hikes, localized exploitation through ATMs, and forced exposure in pension funds. But how does a digital token actually connect to the real macro global economy? I mean, Isn't crypto supposed to be entirely separate from traditional banks?
Well, the bridge between the crypto ecosystem and the real-world economy is a specific financial instrument called a stablecoin. For anyone who hasn't gone down this rabbit hole, a stablecoin is a digital token that makes a very specific promise. It promises that one token will always equal exactly $1.
Okay.
It's supposed to be the safe harbor in the wildly volatile crypto sea. But Carmona argues that stablecoins are actually the weak link because they essentially operate as unregulated banks.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because they have to back up that promise somehow, right?
Yes, exactly. In order to promise that their digital coin equals $1 real, the companies issuing these stablecoins take the actual physical dollars investors give them and park them in traditional banks, or they buy U.S. Treasury bonds.
Wait, so the money backing the digital illusion sits inside the very real physical plumbing of our traditional financial system.
You got it. And because they aren't regulated like traditional banks, they are incredibly vulnerable to bank runs. If everyone suddenly gets spooked and wants their real dollars back at once, the stablecoin issuer can't pay everyone out simultaneously.
Think of it like a coat check at a crowded club. You hand over your real dollar, and they hand you a little plastic ticket, which is the stable coin.
Right.
The ticket isn't the coat, it just represents the coat. But if the club catches fire, or if the coat check attendant secretly lent your coat to someone else to make a side profit, that plastic ticket in your hand becomes completely worthless the second all 500 people rush the counter and realize there are only 100 coats left in the back room.
That's a perfect way to put it. And we actually got a preview of this exact panic. In 2023, when Silicon Valley Bank failed, it sent a shockwave through the tech world. But what a lot of people missed was that a major stablecoin had a massive amount of cash parked at Silicon Valley Bank.
Oh, so when the bank went under, the coat check burned down.
Exactly. That stablecoin temporarily lost its $1 peg. It broke the promise. And the panic that ensued was terrifying because of the sheer velocity.
Which highlights a major difference from the last crisis. In 2008, as Carmona points out, panic spread one foreclosure at a time. It took months for the rot in the housing market to fully reveal itself and spread through the banking sector. But in a crypto crash, panic spreads at the speed of code.
Right. A rumor starts on Twitter, a panic hits a chat room, and billions of dollars try to rush the exit in milliseconds. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the contagion risk isn't just about the speed of a financial crash.
What else is there?
Carmona introduces a deeply concerning point about who might issue these stablecoins in the near future. If big tech companies or massive multinational corporations begin issuing their own stablecoins, they won't just be moving money, they will be moving control. If you are eventually forced to use a corporate stablecoin to participate in the economy, that corporation can dictate what you are allowed to see, what you're allowed to buy, and exactly how your incredibly granular financial data gets used.
It basically turns the simple, everyday act of paying for groceries into a comprehensive system of corporate surveillance. So we have this highly flammable bridge connecting the digital casino to our real-world banks.
Yeah, and crypto might not be the initial spark of the next great economic collapse, but it acts as an accelerant. It is kindling. And she astutely observes that this kindling is currently sitting on top of a highly fragile financial system that is already full of dry wood.
Like what?
Well, we have the massive speculative bubble of AI hype, we have hidden risks in private credit markets, and we have record levels of corporate leverage. The system is already strained.
If this systemic risk is sitting right there in traditional banks and the dry wood of corporate debt is everywhere, why aren't the authorities tearing the bridge down? Like, why aren't regulators stepping in to put up guardrails?
This is where Carmona shifts her focus from financial mechanics to political capture. It all comes down to the lobbying machine. The data here is sobering. She reports that the crypto industry has spent hundreds of millions of dollars lobbying Congress.
Hundreds of millions.
Yeah. To put that in perspective, nearly half of all corporate election spending in the 2024 cycle came from crypto-linked entities.
Half. That is insane.
They are completely flooding the political zone with capital. And according to Carmona's analysis, they are getting exactly what they paid for.
Well, she lists the results right there in the open. Regulatory guardrails are being actively removed. Major lawsuits against crypto firms are being dropped. The enforcement divisions tasked with policing this space are being intentionally defunded, and political pardons are being issued.
Yeah, it's a long list.
But the example that absolutely made my jaw drop was the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac situation. She notes that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, the massive government-backed entities that essentially buy and guarantee the vast majority of all U.S. mortgages, were actually directed by a federal housing regulator to consider counting crypto as an asset in mortgage applications.
It proves we learned absolutely nothing from the subprime crisis.
Suggesting that a highly volatile digital token should be used to underwrite a 30-year home loan is madness. And here is why that matters to you, the listener. If someone can use an artificially inflated digital token to secure a mortgage, that pumps extra imaginary purchasing power into the housing market.
Right.
That drives up property values across the board, which directly impacts what you have to pay for rent, or whether you can ever afford to buy a home, even if you wouldn't touch a Bitcoin with a 10-foot pole.
And Carmona points out that this level of influence creates a baked-in conflict of interest. When elected office holders or their immediate family members personally hold financial stakes in these exact crypto products, the system cannot regulate itself objectively. The conflict isn't just a theoretical possibility, it is structurally embedded into the legislative process.
Okay, I have to push back a little here. I mean, lobbying is just how Washington works, isn't it? Big pharma, big oil, massive defense contractors, they all spend massive amounts of money to influence policy and secure tax breaks. Is crypto doing anything fundamentally different, or are they just playing the established game better than anyone else right now?
That's a fair question. And to properly represent Carmona's viewpoint here, we have to look at how she frames the outcome of this specific spending. She argues this isn't standard lobbying for a favorable tax rate or a minor subsidy. This is effectively auctioning off the foundational rules of our democracy. The crypto lobby is paying to legitimize an entirely parallel financial system, one that inherently shifts massive systemic risk onto ordinary families, while the politicians who write the rules stand to personally profit from the very assets they are refusing to regulate. She is outlining a scenario where the democratic process itself is subverted by concentrated capital.
We've covered a massive amount of ground here, from the trauma of 2008 to Texas energy grids, from predatory ATMs to the halls of Congress. But Carmona brings her talk to a close by bringing it all back to the human element. She asks a really profound question. Why did crypto find such fertile ground in the first place? Why were millions of people so eager to buy into these vibes?
And she answers that with a lot of empathy. Crypto thrived because the traditional system fundamentally broke the public's trust. The status quo has left so many people behind, drowning in debt with wages that haven't kept up with inflation, that the door was left wide open for an alternative.
Yeah, that makes sense.
When the system doesn't work for you, it is completely rational to look for a lifeboat, even if that lifeboat turns out to be made of paper.
People don't usually wake up in the morning and deeply desire a decentralized blockchain ledger. What they want are the basic, fundamental promises of a real economy. They want good, stable jobs. They want a reliable path to building wealth that doesn't feel rigged against them.
Exactly.
They want to be able to afford the basic essentials of life without going into debt. They want a system that catches them when they fall, instead of a system that bails out the banks and leaves their belongings in garbage bags on the curb. So what does this all mean?
Carmona's ultimate call to action is a demand for clarity. She urges the public to demand stability over speculation. She insists that protecting ourselves means recognizing that our financial democracy is currently up for auction, and paying close attention to the specific proposals moving through Congress is the very first step to reclaiming it. We cannot afford to look away just because the technology seems complicated.
It really is a wake-up call to realize that even if you aren't playing the game, your chips have been placed on the table without your permission.
As we wrap up this deep dive, there is one final lingering question that Carmona's research provokes, something for everyone listening to mull over today. Think about the profound irony regarding big tech and stablecoins.
Okay.
The original foundational dream of cryptocurrency was absolute financial privacy. It was meant to be a tool for total freedom from government banks and centralized authority. But if big tech successfully issues these corporate stablecoins, are we inadvertently sleepwalking into a future where, instead of the government, unregulated tech monopolies track, control, and monetize every single transaction we make?
That is a haunting thought. A technology built to escape Big Brother might just be handing the keys directly over to big tech. It really brings us right back to where we started. You might not be the one lighting up the cigarette, but the smoke is in the air, it's getting thicker, and sooner or later, we all have to breathe it in. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Take care of yourselves, and we'll catch you next time.